where you want it.
Bay 12, please.
Hello there Transformers fans, and welcome back to another Bay 12 video review. Today we are reviewing the new Transformers Studio Series Deluxe number 104 Nightbird and Coreclass Novakane from the Transformers Rise of the Beasts film. Now, it's unknown whether or not we are officially finished with the Terracons from Transformers Rise of the Beasts, simply because in the final battle there is a ton of just forged and ready to fight Terracons that fight in the final battle. Some of them are various Freezer and Novakane body types that are in various shapes and sizes, and some of them are drastically different designs that we, as far as I know, still don't have names for. And of course there's the army of Scorponok Predacons that they also fight that are sent directly from Unicron. So there's quite a bit in the ways of Terracon or Terracon-like enemies when it comes to Transformers Rise of the Beast. So saying that we're done with these two, I'm not sure we can, because there's always the potential for more. But when it comes to the main Terracon trio, we are officially finished with the release of Nightbird, because now we have Studio Series Scourge, Studio Series Battletrap, and of course Studio Series Nightbird, at least completing the main trio. And we have, of course, are completing the little duo that goes with Scourge, which is Novakane to pair off with Freezer. And I'm glad that they actually re-released the Freezer body with some slight alterations to give us the other character, which is, of course, Novakane. And they were a pretty interesting, and I can see how, scary little duo, and they were also very brutal. So really cool that we got both figures. It would have been neat to see them transform into their cannon mode. Maybe that was from concept art, I don't know, but we definitely never saw Freezer or Novakane turn into a cannon or turn into a blaster for one of the other bots, but they definitely were stored within Scourge, which was still pretty cool. Anyway, here is Nightbird in the packaging. You've got some artwork of her robot mode there on the front. You've got a close-up of her head there on that side. And then you've got some more artwork of her robot mode on that side. On the back, you've got some shots of the action figure in both robot and alt mode, including this is a Nissan licensed alt mode, so that's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it for Nightbird's packaging. Here we have Novakane on his little Coreclass card back in box. So you've got some artwork up here at the top. You've got Novakane right there. You've got a close-up of his face there on the side. And then you got another little bit of artwork of his robot mode on that side. And on the back, you get to see him both in his robot mode, his gun mode, and his little cannon mode. And that's pretty much it for Novakane's packaging. And of course, Nightbird does come with her Studio Series backdrop, just like Battletrap and Scourge. Looks like she comes with what we now know is the museum on Ellis Island, which was kind of interesting and cool. And here is how she displays on her little backdrop, so you can display your figure there. And just like the other Coreclass, Novakane kind of comes with one, you know, just this little tiny insert one. It's not really a Studio Series backdrop, it's just the cardboard insert that they put the figure in. And while you could say, yeah, that's their Studio Series backdrop, I mean, all the other Studio Series figures now come with a backdrop that they, you know, come attached to that is the same artwork as the actual Studio Series stand-up backdrop, but the Coreclass don't come with their own little mini Studio Series backdrop that opens up and displays. It would be cool if they did, but they don't, which is kind of a shame. And this is really the best we get. But it's the same one, I believe, that came with Freezer. And real quick for comparison, all out together, before we do our close-up with our close-up comparisons, here is Nightbird and Novakane next to Scourge, the leader of their group, Battletrap, the Muscle, and Freezer, the other Minicon. So you can see all 5 of the core team that headed the invasion of Unicron on Earth, altogether. And here is Nightbird out of the packaging. I wanted to start off with her first because there's a little bit more to cover with Nightbird than there is with Novakane. First off, she doesn't look too bad. My biggest complaint about this figure is the size more than anything else. She's a bit too small. She's supposed to be a little bit taller, not necessarily as tall as Battletrap here, but in the movie, I think she at least comes up to his shoulder. She should be at least, I think, this tall compared to Battletrap because she wasn't small in the movie. She was definitely a pretty decent size. So that's my first and biggest complaint about Nightbird. The other big complaint is these little pixie wings that they did for her. I understand they probably were going off of concept art, and they also had to figure out how to engineer her to have the wings like she has in the movie, but also make it to where they'll fit and condense into the vehicle mode. So this is another situation, another instance within the studio series where sacrifices were made in the robot mode so that the vehicle mode looked really good and accurate for that Nissan license, which, as cool as that is, as cool as it was for them to get that Nissan license and to focus on that Nissan license, and the alt mode does look very fantastic, I will grant you, the robot mode suffers because of it. So there is that. Also, once again, not to mention, she should be larger. Now, I would say her vehicle mode is probably closer in scale. We'll get a better idea of that when I'm showing them off side by side. But her robot mode is definitely a bit too small. Other than that, I think the detail looks really good. The colors are pretty decent. I mean, there's some colors that should be a little bit different. She should have more of this like beige color on spots of her legs and some on her arms. I think that she's kind of missing, but it's not too much paint detail in her robot mode that she's missing. Not significantly like with Mirage, for example. She had a pretty dark color scheme, so a lot of those grays and blacks are, I think, very well placed. I wish there were some more blacks, especially on the armor bits and these little spike bits or arm bits right here, just to kind of set it apart from that flat gray, because she definitely has more blacks in her color design than actually showed up on the figure. The metallic purple turned out really good. This metallic beige color also kind of turned out really, really good. And overall, I like it. I'm not quite sure how I feel about her in comparison to the mainline figure that we have right here, for example, because the mainline figure is definitely sized a bit better in robot mode, but when it comes to color scheme, the Studio Series beats it by a mile. The Studio Series color scheme is far more color accurate. The head sculpt, while close, overall the overall shape is pretty much right on the mainline figure. The head sculpt on the Studio Series is definitely much more screen accurate. The way the chest looks in robot mode, much more screen accurate. Pretty similar on these little shoulder fins here that stick out. Pretty similar on these little hip pieces. Even the transformation sequence is actually very similar between these two figures. There's a few differences, but they're a lot closer than you might realize, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then my final complaint about this figure overall is she only comes with one sword, which she should have two, and she doesn't come with any of her other weapons, like her little throwing star grenades, for example, that she had. Those would have been a really cool pack and accessory. Maybe that just wasn't in the concept art or whatever sources that the toy design team at Hasbro had from Paramount. Maybe they just didn't get that information, because that does happen sometimes, which is what leads to some of these inaccuracies before Studio Series figures are released and when the movie is released, because a lot of times they have different assets that they're working off of, and then things get changed for the movie, and then when we see it on screen, oh, that's different now all of a sudden, when they already put all this work into making the figure as accurate as they could with the sources they had, which is why we get inaccuracies kind of like these little pixie wings and the fact that she has only one sword and maybe the height. I don't know if that's where the height played in. I don't know if that was mostly due to them trying to make sure that they nailed the alt mode for the licensing like I mentioned earlier, but regardless, it's something that needs to be pointed out, and these are likely issues that could have led to this being not quite as accurate as it could have been, much like with Scourge, for example. She is fully articulated, head is on a ball joint, fully articulated shoulders in and out. You can also articulate the little armor panel bits here, upper bicep, single jointed elbow, nothing at the wrists, waist, hips. The armor panels rotate here on the side of her leg as well. You can also hinge these joints a little bit. Upper thigh, a knee joint at the thigh, a regular knee joint where the knee actually is, this side ankle joint, and you can open and close the foot, which is mostly due to transformation, and that's pretty much it for her articulation. Real quick, just for comparison, once again, here she is next to Battletrap. I already know we showed her off next to Battletrap, but there she is next to Battletrap, so you can see them side by side. Here she is next to Novakane, the figure we're reviewing her with today, since they came out around the same time. So you can see them side by side, and she should be a good bit larger than Novakane since he's human-sized, or roughly human-sized. He's a little bit larger than a human. And here she is next to Scourge, the boss man, which she is not this tiny next to Scourge on screen. Not even a little bit this tiny next to Scourge on screen. Granted, Scourge has a few inaccuracies, as it turns out, because we reviewed him before the movie came out. But, you know, as far as his height goes, his height was about right on this figure with, you know, the neck extender aside. I have been meaning to get one of the upgrades to fix that, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Like I said, transformation is actually pretty similar to that of the mainline deluxe release of Nightbird. First, what we're going to do is we're going to take off her sword here and just kind of set that to the side because that just kind of stores underneath her alt mode. We're going to come over here to these wings. We're going to pinch them together. We're going to pull on this back section. We're going to untab this little section right here. We're going to extend that. We're going to extend this. And then we're just going to kind of get at this backpack, open this little bit, bring that down a little bit. We're not going to quite put it in place yet, and then we're going to rotate all of that around like so. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of straighten that head out, untab the hood of the car section from that, come over here to the chest, and on this joint, we're going to bring this chest section apart, and then we're going to just go ahead and bring the front of the bumper on like so. Next is the legs, and then the arms will be easier from there. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate at that upper thigh joint all the way around like so. Close this a little on that foot there and bring that section in. And then we're going to rotate these hip panels, rotate this whole leg section up, and that's just going to tuck in. And what we want to do is we just want to tab that foot in, get that all into place like so. And that's this kind of rear panel section of the car mode done. Now we'll go ahead and do this other side. So go ahead and bring that up, rotate, and rotate that simultaneously. And then we're going to peg that foot on. And now that is right about into its correct position. And then we're going to go ahead and do the arms. So bring the arms down like so. Position the wheels where they're supposed to be. Just kind of tuck the arms right there at her sides. And then we can, on this double hinge joint, bring the fender sections all the way up. It's actually a little bit easier if you articulate that side and then bring that side over, and then those are going to tab in to the side of that alt mode right there. And then all that's left to do is to fold all of that down, close that bumper. Oh, we forgot to tuck in the wings. tuck in the wings, then fold all that down and close that bumper. And that's it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's a pretty clean looking alt mode, even on the bottom. I mean, you've got her face sticking out, but other than that, she actually folds up pretty well. And then for her sword, all you do is you find, there's a little peg right there, and on either side you can store her sword right underneath the car. And since it's on either side, there's definitely room for two swords down here, which is another reason why it's kind of a shame where she only came with one sword, considering she's already undersized for her robot mode by a good amount. It would have been nice if she came with at least the two swords, since they saved on the size of this figure. And for comparison, here is Nightbird in her alt mode next to the mainline Nightbird. And the alt mode on the new one definitely looks way better. Her alt mode looks great. Those colors really come together in her alt mode, like I talked about earlier. Much better than on this one. Much better on this one. There's just too much of that, you know, metallic beige like color on there. Or maybe it's more of a like a bright copper or brass like color, but I feel like you guys know what I'm trying to say here. This one's definitely better. In alt mode, clear winner. I mean, she actually has the proper spoiler. Not that I didn't like that they used her weapons on the mainline one to make her spoiler. I thought that was a really cool feature of the mainline release, but I like the more screen accurate spoiler instead, and having her sword just kind of stored on the bottom, whereas this one is just, you got her weapons right here and you can tell it's a sword. That's not very Robots in Disguise-y, whereas this one is. And for the most part, the Terracons at least tried to blend in a little bit while they were on Earth, so there is that. Also, for comparison, here she is next to Battle Trap, and I think their alt modes are definitely better size comparison-wise versus their robot modes, because in robot mode, she is just so tiny. She should definitely be a bit bigger than she is, but in alt mode, I think they're a bit more accurate size-wise than they are versus robot mode. And here she is next to Scourge, who still looks so awesome in his alt mode. Love the size of his alt mode. It looks so good. Next up, here we have Novakane, and just before we get into his articulation and stuff, here he is next to Freezer, so you can see them side by side. And the biggest difference between the two is Novakane definitely has a much brighter color scheme next to Freezer here, and then of course he's got the damaged face, whereas Freezer's head is totally intact. Novakane's missing one of his little fins right here. His left side eyes look like they're a bit damaged, and they didn't just paint part of the face black. The molding is actually a little bit different there on that side of his face than it is on the right side, which is also pretty cool. He has the same articulation as Freezer. Head is on a ball joint, forward and back neck joint. Shoulders are on a ball joint on all four arms. Elbows are on a ball joint on all four arms, no wrist, no waist. Hips are on a ball joint. You have a rear knee joint on a ball joint, nothing at this other knee joint here. Ankles are on a ball joint, and that's pretty much it for articulation. Transformation is just like the other one. We're just going to do his cannon mode for now, since, like I said, we never really saw either transform on screen. So open that backpack, flip out that cannon, straighten that neck out, bring that back up, cover that head with that back panel, and there we have the gun barrel there. Bring those front arms down and rotate them on the elbow joint. Then bring those other arms down, and this little peg is going to peg in on the back of the elbow on the other arm. So just get those pegged together, and from there you can arrange how you want those legs to stand. And then for the legs themselves, just bring that foot and that heel all the way up and just kind of adjust the legs out of the way. And there he is in his little cannon mode. Once again, it would have been really cool, especially in the final battle, to see these little guys transform into either their gun mode for one of the larger Terracons or their cannon mode, especially some of the other varying sizes, Freezer and Novakane body types that were just on the ground fighting the Autobots and Maximals en masse. Just have a few of them just little transform into a little cannon, maybe be a weapon emplacement for another Terracon or something. I'm just saying, it would have been really cool to see on screen, because this is a cool little alt mode, especially for a Terracon or any kind of Cybertronian, really. And here he is next to Nightbird, and he's got some good size to him compared to Nightbird in alt mode. Here he is next to Scourge, and here he is next to Battle Trap, and last but not least, here he is next to Freezer. So you can see them both in their little cannon modes side by side. Also, another awesome cool thing to mention, it would have been really cool if they once again transformed into their guns or cannon modes and then maybe just mounted on Scourge, like both of them, and he's got these big awesome just cannons hanging off of him. That would have been really cool too, just saying. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's review featuring the new Transformers Studio Series number 104 Deluxe Class Nightbird and Coreclass Novakane from the Transformers Rise of the Beast film. This completes at least the main 5 Terracons that we see in Transformers Rise of the Beasts before we get into the massive Terracon army from the final battle, which I also really hope we actually get figures for at some point in the future. I don't even care if Hasbro sizes these up just a little bit. They still transform into just larger cannons, or maybe they get a little bit creative with it and come up with some other alt modes, maybe based off of some other concept art that we didn't see. Who knows? Regardless, I definitely would like to see more. Maybe we'll get a transit figure. I know he's from a deleted scene, but I think there's enough there from that character and his character design to warrant maybe getting a leader class figure or even a slightly smaller commander class figure. But who knows? Let us know what you think of that down in the comments below. Like and subscribe and follow us on social media for more. And make sure you check out our sister website and channel, CoolToyReview.com, for other awesome toy news, reviews, and other video content. If you like Star Wars content, check out RebelScum.com, the world's oldest and largest Star Wars fan website not owned by Disney. And if you're looking for some cool toys and merch, come by our physical location. It's located inside Order 66 Multiverse in the shops at Willowbend Mall in Plano, Texas. And it also houses Order 66 Toys, the world's official collectible Star Wars toy store. And in case you're not local, Order 66 goes live every Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Time from the Order 66 Toys Facebook page, and they ship all around the world. Last but not least, check out our free archival website, collectorsoracle.com. Now, at the moment, it's pretty much all Star Wars toy lines and different Star Wars collectibles, but you can mark and check stuff that you have in your collection, mark the condition they're in. You can even mark stuff that you would like to have in your collection, and you can share these lists with friends and family alike in social media, and it's all absolutely free. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you another time. Transform and roll out.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.